Welcome to PokerRailbird.com, your source for mastering the art and science of poker. I'm Terry, and welcome to the third video in our series on GTO and poker math. Today we're discussing a crucial aspect of poker strategy, understanding pot odds and hand probabilities. In this video, we'll explain how to calculate your hand probabilities and pot odds, two key factors that can make or break your game. Understanding this mathematical process is essential for making informed decisions at the table and will assist you in deciding whether to call, fold, or raise. By the end of this video, you'll have the tools to navigate complex poker mathematical situations confidently. Let's get started. For our discussion, we will say we are playing in a $2, $5 blind no-limit Texas Hold'em game with 9 players. We are on the button with pocket eights. There are 5 callers to see the flop, so the pot is $25 pre-flop. First, let's look at the probability of improving our hand on the flop. The probability of flopping a set, meaning 1-8 on the flop, is about 12% or 7.3 to 1 odds. We also know there is about an 85% probability of an overcard to our 8s coming on the flop. The flop is the king of diamonds, the 9 of spades, and the 7 of hearts. 2 overcards to our 8s. The under the gun player leads out for $20. Everyone folds to the cutoff. She calls, and now the action is on you. The pot is $65 and it's $20 to call. What are your pot odds? Calculating pot odds in Texas Hold'em involves comparing the current size of the pot to the cost of a contemplated call. This helps us determine if making the call is profitable over the long term. In our example, the current pot is $65. To get your pot odds, take the current size of the pot, $65, plus the cost to call $20, giving us $85. And then divide that by the cost to call, which is $20. This will provide us with 4.25 to 1 pot odds. Now let's calculate the probability of making our hand. There are 47 unseen cards. You have seen the 2 in your hand, your pocket 8s, and the 3 on the flop. Assuming no other player is holding an 8, 2 8s remain in the deck. So your odds of hitting an 8 on the turn are 2 out of 47, or 4.25%, which is 23.5 to 1 odds, and about the same probability on the river. You have in total about an 8.42% chance, or about 11.5 to 1 odds of hitting your hand, counting both the turn and river. When calculating your pot odds versus your hand probabilities, you must look at each card, turn, and river independently, as there is the opportunity for betting on both streets. Let me explain why. Back to our pocket 8s. The pot is $65 and it's $20 to call, giving you 4.25 to 1 pot odds, and the action is on you. Do you call? The math says no. Why? With pot odds of 4.25 to 1 and hand odds of 22.53 to 1, it's a losing proposition in this particular hand, and more importantly, in the long term. The pot odds must be better than your hand equity odds for the call to be mathematically correct. This means you must have sufficient pot odds to call the turn bet, and then the correct pot odds to call the river. Let's look at another hand. For this hand, we have the 10 of spades and the jack of spades. Again, you are on the button. But this time, the pot is raised to $15 by the cutoff. You call. The small blind folds, big blind calls, under the gun calls, and under the gun plus 2 calls. Now the pot is $77 pre-flop. The flop is the 8 of spades, the 9 of spades, and the 3 of diamonds. You flop the world, right? Let's see. The big blind bets $50, which is about 70% of the pot. The under the gun folds, under the gun plus 2 folds, and the cutoff calls. Do you call? If you call, the pot is now $227, giving you pot odds of 4.54 to 1. Let's take a look at our outs and probabilities. There are 9 spades remaining in the deck, which gives us a jack-high flush draw. 4 queens and 4 sevens for a straight draw, and of course we also have the open-ended straight flush draw. This gives us 17 outs, 9 spades, 4 queens, and 4 sevens. But one of those sevens and one of those queens is also a spade, so we have to deduct 2, giving us 15 outs. For the turn, our hand probability is 31.91%. 47 unseen cards divided by our 15 outs equals 31.91%, or odds of 2.1 to 1. If we miss the turn, then the river is marginally better at 32.6%, but the odds remain about 2.1 to 1. So, for the turn, the mathematically correct play is to call. Why? Because the odds of making your hand 2.1 to 1 is better than the pot odds of 4.54 to 1. Another way of saying this is you are getting 4.54 to 1 on your money against roughly 2 to 1 probability of making your hand on the turn. Therefore, you have positive pot odds in relationship to your hand equity. We call $50, and now the pot is $227. The turn card is the king of diamonds. 3 players are left in the hand: the big blind, the cutoff, and you, the button. Let's do a little analysis of the board cards. The board now has 2 flush draws, diamonds, and spades. It also has a potential gut shot straight draw. If a player holds Queen Jack, they need a 10, but you do have a blocker. There's an open-ended straight draw if players hold 6-7, and if that is the 6 and 7 of spades, then throw in a straight flush draw, but again you hold the 10 of spades, a blocker to both the straight draw, flush draw, and straight flush draw. Then of course there is an overcard to your jack and all the possible sets and 2-pair combinations. There is also the possibility that another player holds 2 spades with one of their cards an overcard to your jack, about a 36% probability of the 2 spades, and a 9% chance of an overcard to your jack. The big blind bets $160, again about 70% of the pot, and the cutoff calls. Now the pot is $707 if you call, giving you pot odds of 4.42 to 1. You still have the same 15 outs with a 32.6% probability of hitting your hand. The percent probability increased slightly from the turn because now there are 46 unseen cards, but the odds remain about the same at 2.1 to 1. Again, the math says you make the call, as you have favorable pot odds regarding your hand equity. In this video, every decision to call or fold was made strictly based on mathematical calculations. At Poker Railbird, we don't follow rigid rules. There may be times when my actions are not dictated solely by math due to various factors such as players' behavior, changes in behavior, tells, and the general flow of the game. I also did not discuss opportunities where I may have raised them. In this video, I focus on demonstrating mathematical calculations and not attempting to consider all possible situations that could develop during the hand. Additionally, there are instances of rounding concerning the probabilities and odds. This was done to reflect typical calculations made at the table, such as using 8% instead of 7.97% or 2.1 odds instead of 2.13. I hope you enjoyed our video. If you like our content, please hit the subscribe and share buttons, and don't forget to ring that bell so that you will be alerted to our next video. Until next time, this is Terry, and we'll see you at the tables.